Here's a good line for starting to play bass and chords at the same time. Begin by learning just the bass note. The string numbers and voicings are indicated. Notice that the bass note stays on the 5th or 6th string. This allows the line to sound more like an actual bass, whereas the 4th string, while it would make lines easier to play, is a little thin sounding. Before adding the chords, make sure you're using the correct finger to play the bass note. It may seem illogical out of context, but becomes necessary when the chords are added. Now try playing a chord on beats 1 and 3 with your bass note. Use the left hand fingering indicated on the chord grids and the index, middle, and ring finger of the right hand on strings 4, 3, and 2 respectively. The thumb is the only finger that has to change strings. You don't have to use all the left hand fingers as you are playing only 4 notes of the voicing, but it is safer to do so. That way, if your right hand hits a wrong string, it won't be a wrong note. Using the exact same voicings, bass line, and fingerings, the next example places the chord after the beat. This is the style that is most commonly used as it creates a forward motion and has the syncopation that makes the accompaniment swing. It's also easier to play than the previous example because your left hand has time to place the remaining notes of the chord after the bass note is played. Notice I swung the 8th note instead of playing even. That is a good idea. An accompanist has to provide a variety of rhythms to keep his or her part interesting and to influence what the soloist improvises. Often, an accompanist will place a chord before the beat on which it occurs. This technique of feeding the changes allows the improviser to hear the harmony before he plays on the chord. Soloists who play by ear rather than having licks and chord scale relationships worked out mathematically appreciate hearing the chord ahead of time. Doing this while also playing the bass line is quite a challenge. Unlike the previous example, the chord has to be completely in place before the bass note occurs. When playing these bass lines, a legato-connected approach is ideal. However, when you need to have all the fingers in place ahead of time, the bass line often must have a gap between notes. You should notice that this silence is obscured by the attack of the chord, and it sounds just fine. 2, 3, 4. When each of the previous patterns is mastered, alternate 2 of the approaches to produce more variety in your comping pattern. The 6 combinations are on after, on before, before on, before after, after before, and demonstrated below, after on. After you're comfortable combining 2 approaches, add a third. Work out a specific pattern like a combination below. Only after knowing several different exercises will you be able to comfortably improvise the comping pattern without being repetitious, making a mistake, or dropping a beat. Once you learn the progression in the key of G above, try applying the bass lines to other chord progressions. Avoiding open strings will allow you to more easily transpose your ideas. The following example is a section of what is known as rhythm changes because it's based on the chords to the Gershwin tune, I Got Rhythm. It begins with the same root movement as our previous example, only in the key of B flat. Try placing the chords on various parts of the beat as you play the bass line. It will be necessary to work things out at first. Go slowly and write down your ideas in whatever type of notation you understand. Eventually, you'll be able to flow through this and other standard songs like the entire backup band. Notice how the bass is played by just one finger for the majority of the progression. The other fingers need to be ready to place the next chord, so you should usually play the bass note that precedes a chord with the same finger that plays the bass of the chord. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule, but it is followed strictly in this example. String numbers are indicated whenever they change. if you actually play more enhanced voicings with extensions and alterations, it actually becomes easier to play for the left hand.